All right, so the topic of today's video is gonna be a little bit different than what I normally talk about. And today, it's about making friends in dental school. When I first started school, I thought being surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of like-minded individuals like myself, it would be super easy for me to be making a lot of friends, especially because I feel that I'm extroverted and I'm outgoing. I thought it would be easy to connect with these people and have a ton of friends, but to be honest, I was quite wrong. And I want to talk about that today. I want to open up a little bit more. If you're going through a similar struggle, maybe you can relate to what I went through. It's kind of just like an open confession on why I wasn't able to make a lot of friends in school, and also why I have a tough time keeping in touch with a lot of friends nowadays, even after graduation. To be honest, I feel like some of it was my fault. I felt like I was a little antisocial at times, and I really wanted to dive into this more because if you may be feeling like this, like, you should know that you're not alone, because I've definitely felt like that through a large part of dental school. So if you're currently in dental school and you may be feeling like this, maybe you can give me some advice, because honestly, it was pretty challenging to make friends in school. I'm always looking for ways to be able to network with more people and just connect with more human beings overall, because as I've gotten older, I feel that human connection is really what drives us as people. So when I got into NYU as a bright-eyed D1, I thought everybody was gonna be super open and warm and welcoming. Honestly, I thought it was gonna be more like undergrad. But as I quickly went through the first couple weeks, I felt like it was more like high school. And we all know how high school can be, right? Because the high school vibe is so much more like cliquey, people getting into groups, and you start to hear gossip, all this other stuff that really doesn't add to the experience of the schooling that you're going through. And once I started to see these cliques forming, it was pretty obvious that these cliques were not really allowing people to get into their groups as well. And because I didn't necessarily, have a solid group from the start, like most people kind of find their group, stick with it, and, let that marinate over time to develop into lifelong friends. I didn't have that. So it was worrisome for me, right? Because I didn't have that group of people that you do everything with, right? You always see that, like, oh, the bros are going to the gym together, or the girls are getting their hair done and gossiping, and I didn't have that. And that was like, oh snap, I started to freak out. I was like, because going through this process of dental school is overwhelming, and if you don't have a group of people to go through it with, it can be like really, really devastating to your mental health. And trust me, you definitely want to have those friends, because during those really rough exam weeks where the exams, there's just 3, 4, 5 exams, you got practicals coming, you're gonna feel a lot of ups and downs. And if you don't have a group of people to be with you on those downs, it can be really tough. And I was having mental breakdowns like a lot of the time, and I really didn't have anybody to talk to relate with initially, and man, those were really tough times for me. Also, at the time of D1, I was dating a girl in my class. Like, she was in my GP, so like we were super close together. At NYU, there's like 370 or 380 kids, but it's broken down into like 15 groups of 25 or something like that. So those 15 groups are your GP, or your group practice. And those are pretty much the kids you do everything with throughout the dental school experience. I just so happened to start dating a girl in my GP. When things went a little sour, my GP started turning against me too, and I was labeled as like a villain. Then it really kind of got out of hand, because when I felt like I had nobody, then it started to feel like I was having enemies. And then going through grades and exams, GPA, ranks, and then having to deal with like some baby mama drama, or like not really like a baby mama, but like drama. It was just like so much to handle at the time. So dating in dental school is an extremely slippery slope. Let me tell you right now. You will definitely see some of your classmates obviously get together in relationships. Some will go on to get married and live happy lives on Instagram or whatever. You're definitely gonna start to see groups separate because of breakups, where all the guys in the group and all the girls separate because 2 of them were dating and now they're not friends. You're gonna start to see all of that stuff. It's a really slippery slope, so just make sure if you're starting to date, like, you at least know where it can possibly lead to and the consequences of your actions. They always say, like, don't shit where you eat, right? But you're going through this experience together with, very similar people in really close quarters. It's almost hard not to, appreciate these people for who they are. They're just different versions of you, all chasing pretty much the same dream, which is really cool to see once you're in school. But be very, very careful. I'm telling you right now. Just be careful, because I got caught in the crossfires of all of that, and oh boy, that was very, very. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. All right, so I mentioned that I was being a little antisocial in the beginning, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about why I was doing that. Now, when I got into school, my biggest focus was on my grades. I'm not gonna lie, I guess people label it as like a gunner, people trying really hard, but I was paying $550,000 for tuition. Like, these grades have such a tremendous impact on your future. If you really think about it, it can change your family trajectory. It can change generations to come. If you just get more A's on these exams, you have the potential to specialize. You can make much more money. You can work less, and it just opens more doors at the time. And the alternative is to not try as hard and just pass, which I understand, but when I was a D1, I was like really focused in on specializing, and that really affected my social life. I feel like a lot of incoming D1s have this overly intense focus about specializing and maintaining the highest grades. Kids want to come in becoming an orthodontist or oral surgeon, so you have these really bright dreams. And it's understandably so that you have these, but it puts so much pressure on the students to succeed, especially in a cutthroat environment like NYU Dental, where it was like 400 kids, the tiniest quiz grade you get wrong will drop your rank. When I started really focusing on my grades, I really started to isolate myself, and this actually led to a pretty severe depression in my first semester, also my second semester, so my D1 year. And then as I isolated myself, I started seeing my homies on social media, the kids who were just trying to get by, just going out to clubs and hanging out, having nice lunches when there's like exams the next day, and that stuff never helped. I have a healthy relationship with social media at this point because I feel comfortable in myself, but at the time, that stuff was eating me alive, and I just kept thinking like, wow, why don't I have friends? But I gotta focus in school, like I gotta get good grades, and I just was such in a lost state of mind at the time. And on top of all that, like, dental school is super competitive. Like, I don't know why people say it's not competitive. It is designed to be competitive. You got into a school where they just got like 5,000 applications for like 100 spots, 200 spots, 300 spots. And when you get in, it's like everybody's like a gladiator battling against each other for the best grades. Like, okay, the bottom half of the class maybe doesn't care as much, but still, you're still competing with each other. You consider how much money an orthodontist or endodontist can really make in lifetime earnings compared to a general dentist. And it's pretty substantial. So I started to, compete with my classmates for grades because this is what it is. It's just a competitive environment. And then I started to see kids from really privileged backgrounds, kids who have been tutored their whole life, or some of my classmates internationally had class sizes growing up of like 20. 30 kids from kindergarten to 12th grade. Like, you gotta imagine intellectual individuals that are coming into this arena to battle for these grades and who have been bred to be these doctors who have, who are children of doctors or children of wealthy people being put into private institutions throughout their entire lives. And so I kind of had like a defense up, guarding myself. So I really wish at the time I didn't show so much of it, and I was more to myself about my intentions to possibly specialize, or even the idea that grades mattered a lot to me, because if you ever mention that to people, you're automatically labeled as a gunner, and in my personal experience, and there becomes a barrier or a distance that people hold themselves from. So this became a really dark time in my life. D1, D2, bouncing around, trying to make friends, not really clicking with a solid group of people. I tried to just say hi as often as possible, try to find people who were like me, and just try to initiate conversation to see where it went. And actually, NYU had a boat party to start off the year. And I thought, great, I'll make a ton of friends. So what actually worked in this situation for me was I saw the kid who looked like me the most. I'm just a brown kid who I think likes to dress well. So I found the first brown kid that likes to dress well, and I just said hi. Actually turned out to be my closest friend from dental school, my future roommate in dental school. We still talk to this day. We still talk about our lives, where we're going, practice ownership, dentistry, family, all that good stuff. So as the boat was taking off, I was just walked up to him. I said, yo, I like your Bathing Ape yellow shirt. It's really cool. My name's Cash. What's your name? And we started chatting, whatever, and we became close friends at that point. And the boat cruise was super extravagant. It was really fun. We got to go around the Statue of Liberty on a boat, catered. It was a really fun time. I even like snuck alcohol pouches like in my pants. I had like 10 and I brought with me because I thought it would be a great time to just turn up with the homies for the first time. You know, just bringing a couple drinks here and there, gets the party going, and yeah, we ended up just sneaking it in girls' purses and stuff. It was really fun. And I actually made a few friends like that too. But they were disposable, like they were like plastic pouches. I used to do this in undergrad because like it would just be really expensive to go out and drink. So we would have like plastic flasks that we can fill up with alcohol, like top shelf alcohol, and then you can just like toss it out at the end of the night. And then you go to the bar, you get like a club soda for like $1, $2, and like fill it up, like sneakily fill it up. And then you'd get like lit and you'd be balling on a budget too. So life pro tip. Now, the boat cruise is definitely not worth the $500,000 in tuition, but NYU Dental did come with a few perks, and that was definitely one of them. It was pretty cool. And then like graduation at Yankee Stadium and all that stuff, but you get the point, it's not worth the $500,000 for those things. But yeah, the kid in the yellow shirt named Fareed, he's my closest homie. He eventually introduced me to the whole brown community at NYU, and you'll find it pretty interesting that like all the ethnic groups will just form knits amongst each other, like close-knit groups. You'll find the Koreans, the Persians, the Indian kids, the black kids, the white kids. They all kind of just start forming these groups. So definitely tap into your ethnic group. If you have one that you may be leaning towards, just pick one and just start to say hi a little more often, because those form quick. And some of those ethnic groups have great resources, I promise you. So definitely look into that. Those resources help you a lot in dental school. And the ones who get the resources first do pretty well. But yeah, I was trying to find people who had similar backgrounds as me, ethnicities as me, maybe the same undergrad school I went to. I would even do like some stalking on Instagram before I met these people, like just trying to check their vibes out. You know, it's a little stalkerish. I get it, okay. But people do it, people do this stuff, right? So check them up on Instagram, you kind of find their vibe, what they like to show the world, where they're coming from, what school they went to. These things help, because if you ever just bump into somebody, you can always just be like, oh hey, like, you know, you already know they came from Rutgers. If I went to Rutgers, they'd be like, oh hey, what's going on? Like, hey, what school did you go to? And you'd be like, they'd be like, oh, I went to Rutgers. I'm like, no way, me too. What a coincidence. Yeah, I did that a couple times, and it helps here and there. And I know initially it can be super nerve-wracking to really just walk up to strangers, just say hi and try to break the ice for the first 15, 20 seconds. But you know, looking back, that has helped me a lot in my life. Not really say hi to strangers, but as you realize you get older, for me, I felt that the world was getting smaller essentially, and to make friends you really have to try and put yourself out there and be vulnerable. So after doing this a couple times, I did realize that people are initially friendlier than you'd imagine, and everybody's going through the journey together, so people are looking to make friends. They're not so scary, you know, and I realized that over time. My next approach to making friends in dental school, because I was desperate, I was trying a bunch of different things. I would go out to night events and nightclubs and party with some of my classmates too. And from my experiences at Rutgers, this wasn't the best thing to do, because the characters you meet at nightclubs aren't really the people you want to surround yourself with all the time. And yes, in grad school there are similar personalities that can also be not the best people to hang around with, because they have their own specific late night hobbies and interests. So I decided, maybe how about I go invite people to lunch, or maybe we go to sim lab together and we just practice for the upcoming practical together. Sometimes I would get a yes, sometimes I would get a no, but the yeses would turn into invites as well, where it's, oh, maybe I can't do that, but we're all going out for food after the exam, you want to come with. And that helped me a lot too, just to get more comfortable. As long as you have somebody like introducing you to a group, you feel more at ease when you're with the group than just kind of like being a part of a random group at a time. So, and then at some point I did realize I was trying really hard. So just keep in mind about that too, like you are the energy that you give off, and people pick up on that stuff, so be careful with that. So I will say that my first 2 years, to be completely honest, was a roller coaster of emotions, with a lot of ups and downs, a lot of downs emotionally, and a lot of isolation. So my goal for my next 2 years was to just let it go. Stop focusing so heavily on my grades, stop trying to come off standoffish, stop trying to create these barriers between me and everybody else. I would just let it organically flow. Whatever happens, happens. Try my best in school, but don't really let it consume me as a human being. Like, don't try so hard. Just do what you gotta do and be cool with the results. Be outcome independent, essentially. So I would just let it flow organically, but still be open and receptive to opportunities to make friends. And I realized that in dental school, when things get really tough, friendships start to form when you're facing a common struggle. And those do really become your closest relationships because those emotions are so heavily tied to your beginning formation of the relationship that it really triggers like a different part of your brain. And I remember those, the moments where I was the most down, the people I relied on and the people that understood me and I was able to connect with at those times stayed with me forever. And in those last 2 years, I realized the mistake I was making, and it was that I was actively pushing people away from my life and pushing away distractions that I thought would hurt my grades. But in actuality, you need those interactions with those people because those people will ground you. They will keep you sane. When you're going through really tough exam weeks, you will be more focused if you have a solid group of friends around you. And once I solidified a group of friends, dental school got a lot easier for me. I was able to study with people, I was able to go work out with people. When I needed somebody to talk to, somebody was there for me. There's not a price for that kind of stuff. Like, it's one of those intangible things you can't really like touch or grab, but it's definitely real. Human connection is very real. And it's important to realize the actual benefit of relationships, since they will get you so much further when you're with a group of people than if you try to do it alone. And I'm sure if you're in dental school now, you know kids who don't really have many friends and they would never show up to events, they would just be by themselves. And looking back, I feel really bad for those kids because I can't even imagine going through the entire 4 years alone without many friends to relate to. And what helped me was really identifying who I was as a person, because once I became more authentically me or genuinely me, people started gravitating towards that energy. People of similar interests and similar mindset gravitated towards me, and that whole process of becoming friends with people just became more organic. But man, those first 2 years of really being in isolation ate me alive. And it just started getting to my head. So if I would ever give advice to my younger self, I would just say not to focus too much on it. Understand who you really are as a person and just allow things to come towards you. Put yourself in opportunities and places where people are receptive to meeting other people and trying to create friendships. I also noticed that people's friend groups in the beginning, first 2 years, really started changing too. So if you are in that position where you feel like you don't have a lot of friends, it's okay, because some friend groups start in D4, some start in D3, some do kind of start from day one, but it definitely changes. So there's always more opportunities to make friends and connect with people in your class. And to be honest, my closest friends came from D4 a year when we all had the most free time and we were all just chilling, and I was able to really understand who I was and just be okay with interacting and not being so caught up in having lifelong friends or having like a partner or anything like that. It was just more free flowing, and people really enjoy that. Dental school can be a wild ride, and if you don't have friends, I understand what you're going through. Even for somebody like me who I consider to be extroverted and outgoing, like I have a YouTube channel and it may seem like I'm always living like a cool life, but I'm very to myself a lot too. It took me a very long time to develop this skill set of creating friends and developing relationships, and that was through trial and error. So to sum up this video, I really just wanted to bring attention to the idea that you are not alone. I went through this struggle and it was absolutely devastating in the moment. I found myself, I found people who were eventually lifelong friends, and it really became a blessing in disguise. Even if you don't find that core group of friends in dental school, when you graduate and you're making dentist money and you're living your fun, exciting dentist life, you won't even really care about like who wasn't your friend or who was your friend at the time, because life just moves fast, and to be just simply present is really special. To think too far ahead of the future and think too far in the past of what it could have been is just so unnecessary. As you graduate, there's still opportunities to make friends. Every day is just simply a new beginning and an opportunity to make friends, potentially find that lifelong partner, or just be in an environment where people are willing to introduce themselves and make connections. It definitely requires time, effort, patience, being okay with rejection, and some people's definitive decisions to not be friends with you, and all that stuff is just okay and a part of life. But if you have any questions or just want somebody to reach out to, you can always leave comments down below. Want to hear what you guys are thinking. I know this was a really emotional and vulnerable video for me to make, which I don't normally make content like this. If you want to see more content like this, definitely leave a comment down below. Hit that like button if you can. I'll see y'all next time.